Okay, with the complete dominance of Lavaloons right now, particularly in clan wars at the elite level, I thought it's time to do a bit more of a look at Lavaloon defense. A lot of the bases right now are extremely similar, and I think they're making choices in terms of their strategy which people have cracked. And I think there's a lot of view around at the moment that pretty much any base is crackable. Now, I don't hold that view. I think the reason why most of the bases around are crackable is because they're all using the same strategies, and some of the strategies are flawed. And so what this guide is about is actually looking at Lavaloon defense from more of a strategic point of view in terms of what are the strategies you need to be thinking about when designing your base. And when you actually then start to apply them to a lot of current bases, you find that actually a lot of the tactics being used in some of the current bases aren't the best. They are flawed, and there's better base designs around, and we just need basically someone to go around and trial some things and design them. So in terms of this guide, I just want to at the start touch on this guide is going to focus on clan wars and cup winning defenses. It's not going to focus on farming, so if you focused on farming, this is not the guide for you. Might give you some ideas for how to structure your farming base, but I'm not going to focus on that in this guide. Now, the first thing about Lavaloon defense is I thought I'd just check this at the start because it's just really simple, which is if you're particularly playing for cups, balloons do splash damage, 0.5 tiles splash damage range. So if you put your defenses against your town hall and balloons come past, you can accidentally lose your town hall. So it's just one of the basics if you're actually defending 2 stars, is make sure you don't put your defenses right against your town hall, because balloon splash damage can sometimes take out your town hall, particularly as they're raging through the middle. So that's just a basic one to start. Now, next, probably a bit deeper. One of the critical things in defense of any type is this principle of early damage. Now, the idea is the faster you hurt the attack, particularly the high damage troops, the more you will win. Now, let me explain that by reference to, say, Go Wee Wee. Like the way I defend Go Wee Wee is I look to take out the witches and wizards early. And then I focus the middle on the troops that are doing less damage, and I kill them with single defenses. So what I do is I try and route the golems sideways and get the wizards and witches to run into some big bombs. If you kill the witches and wizards early, then you've got a lot less damage behind the attack. And then you've got maybe your heroes and maybe a pecker or 2 fighting the rest of your single shot defense. So that's an example of a strategy on ground to sort of inflict damage on the damage producing troops early. Now, the way I'd apply this concept to air defense, I've sort of looked at 3 different areas of the attack. Firstly, in terms of the hybrid stage, I think you need to concentrate your ground traps, your bombs, your ground skellies, and your king in the areas of the base where you're likely to be subject to a hybrid attack, or you're defending your queen. So now the issue at the moment is you're seeing a lot of bases, war bases particularly, with centered queens. Now the trouble with a centered queen is sounds like it's well defended, but you actually can access the queen from all 4 sides, and the problem with that is it means that you've actually got to spread out your ground bombs, spread out your skeletons, spread out or your king you can probably put next to your queen, but you spread out your defenses, and you can't actually defend the queen as well as if you had your queen placed in an area where there's an obvious, it's deep, but there's an obvious area of attack or areas of attack. And if you can narrow down the areas which are smart for the hybrid part of the range, what you can do is you can put your ground traps there, your bombs, your ground skellies, your king in those areas, and that way you can inflict more damage on the hybrid, and then the hybrid's got less chance of coming off. And I know I did this with the base that sort of lasted for 4 months that got cracked. The actual crack actually used a spell in the first stage because I actually used a rage in the first stage because there was so much concentrated in that area that you couldn't crack it without using a rage in that first stage. The other thing to do in terms of hybrid defense is you want to slow down the defense so it suffers more damage before it actually gets your air defenses down and your queen and your inferno. So what you do is you use your high hit point non-defense buildings to defend the you stack them in your hybrid air defense area of your base. So I really like I know a strategy I'm using is I'm putting the town hall sort of into the base but on a corner, and I'll put my multi diagonally behind the town hall, and that way if the person attacks from two different sides, they've got to take out the town hall, which is, I don't know, it's 5,000 hit points or something, before they hit my multi and hit my queen. And I've also put other high hit point buildings around there. Like you might put bows there, you might put your storages there, you might put your DE store. But if you can narrow down the sensible part of your base to hit with a hybrid, what you want to do is then stack the obvious areas of hybrid attack with high hit point non-defensive buildings. That way it takes the king and the queen a lot longer to work through it. They suffer more damage, and basically the hybrid's less likely to be successful. Now the second, lava attack. So this might be obvious to some, but you place all your black bombs protecting your air defences. Your lavas go straight to the air defence. Black bombs are your highest air defence damage things you've got. So for goodness sake, place your black bombs protecting the air defences so they're going to hit the lavas, and think in terms of the side that's not likely to be hit by hybrid, put your extra black bomb on the side that's not likely to be hit by hybrid, so you've got 3 black bombs that side. It might sound obvious, but I'll be posting a replay soon which shows a person who was 3-starred who didn't do this, and what happened is, because the lavas lasted so long, because they weren't hit immediately with the black bombs when they hit, the lavas circled most of the base and the person got 3-starred because of it. It's that important to use the black bombs to hit your lavas early. Now finally, balloon attack. Now this is an interesting one. I think there's a strategy that's not being employed much at the moment around separating the lavas from the loons. Now anyone who's done Go Wee defense or Go Wipe defense knows the value of separating your golems from the rest of the troops. Same thing with lavas, right? So people need to experiment with spreading out the air defenses. I'm certainly experimenting with it at the moment. I'm not getting hit by air at all. But if someone drops a lava, it protects the loons as they come in. But as soon as that air defense dies, then the lava goes running off the other side of the base. That exposes that leaves all of the defences inside, all of the air defences inside, to attack whatever balloons. So the lava's no use anymore. It's gone and run away. So I think there's a really interesting strategy about how you spread out your air defences. There's a balance here. You don't want to expose them to being hit from the side, or by some hogs or something like that. You don't want to make them easy to pick off, but you can defend that sort of stuff. But the more you spread them out, the more the lavas run away from the balloons, the more the balloons are exposed. And this is why bases like the unbalanced air defence, which I've got posted, work so well in terms of air defence, because it just leaves the balloons unprotected by lavas. So there are 3 principles. So there are 3 sub-strategies to try under this idea of how do you put lots of damage on the different troop types early. Next, maximising defence damage per building defence destroyed. Now I've got 3 sub-strategies here as well. Now, the idea here is, if you've got a defensive building, you want to get the most air damage out of it that you can. So first thing I want to talk about is wizard towers. Now wizard towers do air splash damage. Right now most of the bases use wizard towers terribly, just to think about the potential of a wizard tower. So if a maximum wizard tower hits 1 balloon, it does 48 points of damage. If it hits 10 balloons, just over here, it does 480 points of damage. 20 balloons, up at 960 points of damage. If 30 balloons, you can be over 1400 points of damage per second of damage output from a wizard tower. Now, what that says to me is you want to be up this end of the curve, not this end of the curve. So why would you place wizard towers shallow? So firstly, why would you put an air defense in the range of a wizard tower and have a wizard tower deliver 48 points damage per second on one troop, a lava? That to me just makes completely no sense, and I don't know why people do it in bases. Now, next is in terms of the actual base design, you need to be thinking about how do I bunch the balloons in terms of their and you're seeing lots and lots of flat attacks. I don't know why people place all the defense buildings side by side. I think I do. I think the reason they do it is they design the walls first, and then they place the defenses side by side inside the walls. Now, if you're going to do an air defense, place your defences first and put in your walls later. But people are making the mistake because they always love symmetrical bases and designing the walls first, and as a result, people don't route and bunch the balloons. Next, you need to be thinking about having the wizard towers deeper. If you want to be up this end of the curve, or this end of the line, not down this end of the line, well, on the perimeter you might get drops of 2 or 3 balloons together. So you're in the range of 100 to 150 damage per second. If you're towards the center, you can get groups of 10, 20, and I've even seen a group of 30 balloons. So you can be up at the 500 to 1400 damage per second, and then you've got a real weapon in terms of your defense. And think about a heal might be, what's a heal, 1800 hit points. So if you're doing damage up here, you've chewed through a heal in 1.3 seconds. So they're potentially really powerful, and people need to think about firstly, no air defences in range. How do you route and bunch the balloons before they get to the whiz towers? Are my whiz towers deep enough so I'm at this end of the curve? And the other final thing in terms of whiz towers is if you're using them as a high damage defence, don't place them next to your Inferno or in freeze defence range of the Inferno, and certainly not 2 of them in range, because the Inferno is probably going to be frozen. People love freezing their Inferno, and if they freeze your whiz tower and your Inferno, you're getting nothing from it. Now, next on maximising defence damage, important concept, time under fire. You need to, the critical buildings, so what I've got here is a graph of hit points per building for the defences. Now, what you can see is the crossbow is by far the highest hit point building. So the reason why I raise that is because what it says is the more fire you can put a crossbow under, if you think, look at, I don't know how to explain this. So look at a mortar. So a mortar's down here, crossbow up here. That means a bunch of balloons probably going to be 3 times the time over a crossbow than a mortar. So you want to make sure that your high hit point buildings are under lots and lots of fire. Now, when you assess the amount of fire a building is going to be under, you need to think about where the balloons are going to be coming from, because it's likely that on the outside of that defence, those defences aren't going to count for fire. So I guess the so what for this is really think closely about your placement of your crossbows and look with the balloon pathing and routing, how many hit points of damage is the bunch of balloons that's over that crossbow going to be under. I'm a huge fan because of this of placing crossbows under deep wizard tower fire, so hopefully they've got a huge bunch of balloons, and the wizard towers floating over it and pumping it in. But this kind of leads to, if you can, in terms of your base setup, just have a look at how much fire your crossbow's under, how many balloons are likely to be over them at the time when they're under fire, and try and maximise the time those high hit point buildings are under fire. Now, next, slowing the attack. Now, I'm actually showing a little snapshot of my current war base here, which I don't tend to do. So 2 strategies, so 3 things I want to cover here. Firstly, rage defense. Now, basically what I'm going to say is I reckon people should be doing more of this and less of this. So rage defense. You're seeing a lot of bases right now with, you look through a base and so often you see a cluster of defense buildings, and that just says rage me here, and particularly if you've got an Inferno on the edge of it. So what people are doing is offering high value rages. If you put a rage over that, the balloons will knock out 6 defences in no time. Look at, say, the base I'm running at the moment. So work out where you're going to place your rage there. It's going to be hard to hit all the buildings, but you can see that it's not, you know, instantly 6 buildings fall in the range and I've got huge value from a rage. Maybe you get 4, maybe you get 5, but it's not so easy. And you could easily have a rage with, you know, you say you raged here, you might do that, you get 5. But try and look at minimizing the amount of buildings within the range of a single rage. Next, you need to think about balloon travel distance. So, balloon, you know, say you drop three bunches of balloons here, they just go boom, straight through here and straight through here. Here, if you dropped, you know, 3 bunches of balloons here, they would cluster all on the cannon first. Now you've got a single bunch of balloons rather than 3 bunches of balloons here. That single bunch of balloons has to go here, then here, it might go here. I think it goes out here on the space, but you know, say here. But you can see that once you've clustered them all, the balloons are traveling a lot of distance, and that slows down the attack. So you need to think about how do you bunch the balloons early, which gets to the third point I'm on, and then how do I make them run around the base rather than just evenly path through so they're not traveling too far. So third, no flat defences. Now you see a lot of bases with, you know, 3 buildings on the side, so you just put 2 loons, 2 loons, 2 loons, that, the balloons come through. That means they don't have to travel as far. It also means they're not bunched, so they're not as subject to air splash damage. Well, let's have a look at this base. So you drop the balloons all along here, they'll bunch on the cannon. If any haven't bunched on the cannon, they'll bunch on the archer tower, and then they'll come here. And then, you know, they'll be in this huge bunch. They might come through here and be and be under fire from 2 wizard towers. So bunch them by having non-flat defense, and then put them under air splash damage is the sort of idea there. But they're all sort of ways of slowing the attack. Next one, probably not as important a one, but it's important if you're doing cap defense. Don't offer a lot of free buildings, particularly if you're trying to defend percent. Minimize the number of free buildings offered to minions, and also to balloon splash range damage. Now this next bit is important. When you watch your defense replays, watch any points of the attack where the balloons are knocking out 2 buildings at once, and there's a real simple fix in terms of gaining a couple of percent on a base, or you know, if you're defending 3, if you see 2 defense buildings go at once, just add a space between them, and then the balloon splash damage won't take down 2 at once. If you're trying to defend percent and watching the defenses and you're seeing often a place where balloons path and take down 2 buildings at once, just add a space between them and you'll lose less percent. Really simple strategy, and just an easy way of making it just a tad harder to actually destroy your base. Why give away 2 defences when you can give away 1 at a time? Next one, final one, so 2 strategies on this one. Freeze defense and controlling the order of defense destruction. So freeze defense, so what I've got here is 3 things. So I've got, for each of the defense types, what's the air damage per second, and then I've got, okay, what's the actual defense spaces that each of those buildings covered, and I've only focused on where there's air defense there. And then what I've done is I've multiplied the air damage per second by the area that they've covered to get some sort of proxy of what's the air defense value of this particular defense type. Now, so now in terms of the strategies here, what's relevant to freeze defense is what's the air damage per second. Now what I mean by that is, say freeze defense is going to take down a defense for, I don't remember my timings, maybe 8 seconds, maybe 6 seconds, say it's 6 seconds. What's relevant there is how many hit points of damage per second of air defense you're taking out. It doesn't matter what area the defenses cover, it's just what's the output damage of defense you're actually taking out. So the idea here is try not to, in terms of your base and your freeze defense, try not to put too much air defense that can be covered by a single freeze. We saw a lot of bases restart a while back with an Inferno and air defense, and maybe also an Archer Tower in the one range. You know, so you've got what's that? 320 plus 200, say 500. So maybe 600 DPS that could be frozen by a single freeze. Really watch how many, what buildings are clustered, and try and minimize, situations where you say losing an Inferno, an air defense, or wizard tower and the like. You really want to lose only one of those things to any freeze if you can. Now next, in terms of order of destruction, and this is really important in terms of your base. So what I've done, so just take you through this again. So I've taken the damage output per second. Then I've taken the radius of each of the defense types and used that to cover, say, how many defense area spaces are covered by that particular defense type. Now you multiply the two and you get some idea about what's the overall defensive value of this defensive type. Now where you've got blues and reds here, what that means is, an Inferno, if it's just got one troop, will only do 42 points of damage per second. But I hope I got that right. But if it's got a multi, if it's got all 5 beams operating, we'll do 5 times the damage. And so where I've got the blues and red, that means the damage is variable. Now what I've said with whiz towers, I've said with hitting one balloon, they do 48 damage per second. I've said for the max, let's just say it's 10 balloons per second, but whiz towers obviously can be much more. So whiz towers, you can argue that the bar should be higher. So, but the damage for an Inferno falls in this range, damage for a whiz tower falls in this range. So what that says is the defensive value, as you'd expect, air defenses, extremely valuable. They cover a lot of area and they do lots of damage. Absolutely critical in air defense, and you want to defend them and with all your might. The Infernos, so this surprised me, almost half the value of air defense, and I guess you're usually using all 5 beams, but air defense has actually turned out to be much more important. Now the shock for a lot of people will be wizard towers. If they're deep, wizard towers can be as important as defensive unit as air defenses, and that's only assuming you can get 10 balloons bunched. If you can get 20 balloons bunched, you can have them twice as important as an air defense in your defensive structure. Now this says to me, people really need to think seriously about placing the wizard towers deep, because that way you grab all the red area, and you've got 4 more weapons which are almost as important, and can be more important than air defenses in your air defense strategy. Now, the point of order of destruction is you need to have a look at your balloon pathing and make sure, give away your archer towers. Firstly, give away your cannons and your mortars under fire early. But then make sure you're giving away your lower value buildings before your higher value defense buildings, in terms of looking at the routing structure in your base. So what you need to be doing there is, everyone knows what hog rings are. So run your defensive building structures like diagonally in front of your Infernos, or with rings around your Infernos, or with rings around your air defense. But really look closely at your pathing of your air defense around your base, and do what you can to actually keep your air defenses, wizard towers and your Infernos as long as possible. So that's it for the defense guide. Hopefully that gives you at least a checklist of things to review your current base design on, and if you're actually designing a base, a range of things to play around with and concepts to trial in sort of new base designs. Next episode of this, I think I'm going to do just a couple of concepts, just to sort of bring some of this for life for people, show some potential ways you could, put this into action. I'm not going to do a full base design. I'll just do, the sort of the key bits of the base, because, I leave people to design their own bases, but I'll give you some sense of how to bring this to life. I hope you enjoyed my first deeper defense guide episode on my channel, and the next deep look I'm going to go into is farming bases, but that'll be after I've finished a couple of episodes on Lavaloon defense.